you for joining me on the journey. This is Completed Christianity, so welcome back. Another episode of Being Complete, and today is fifth day, what they say, and we're going to continue on with what we were talking about last time with doctrines regarding, the Daystar scandal. On the heels of that, there's various doctrines, people involved, people talking doctrines, and things of that nature, and so we'll look back at our video again from Brother John Elving as we looked at before, and in that particular video, what the doctrine that we're going to be looking at is we're going to be looking at the doctrine of hell, of going to hell, of hell is a literal place, hell is a real place, and we're going to look at that. So let's take a leap, a jump right over here, and let's let him tell us what he's going to say.
However, the Seventh-day Adventists are annihilationists, so there is no hell, no eternity of the soul. They call it soul sleep. So, for an example, the total and absolute wrath of God, all right. The wrath of God is, that was it. When you fall asleep, there is no punishment in hell. They're called
Okay, so to talk about hell versus annihilationism, and he's saying that what the Seventh-day Adventists teach, and again, I'm not a Seventh-day Adventist, and I don't promote that anybody should be. They get a lot of things right, more than the mainstream Christian denominations in some respects, but then they get some kooky ideas behind the scenes and stuff like that. So don't recommend that. But what he says here is wrong. Okay, the Seventh-day Adventists, what he said, that's the total wrath of God, that you just fall asleep. That's wrong. That's not what Seventh-day Adventists teach, and we'll get to that here in a minute. But let him finish out here.
Annihilationism, right? Now, I believe and teach what the Bible teaches, that the smoke of the torment will ascend forever and ever, and they'll have no rest day or night, those who take the mark of the beast. Luke 16:19, this is a rich man and Lazarus, all right? Very clearly in the Bible, all the way into the Sermon on the Mount, there is a precious value of the soul.
Okay, so this idea that he was talking about, we'll let him go over this again. Let's see.
And they'll have no rest day or night, those who take the mark of the beast.
Okay, so that back it up a little bit more.
Right? Now, I believe and teach what the Bible teaches, that the smoke of the torment will ascend forever and ever, and they'll have no rest.
Okay, the smoke of the torment will ascend forever and ever. Okay, when we have this cognitive dissonance, we already believe something, when we read something like that through that filter, then okay, that makes sense. But what he said that's the reason that he believes in eternal torment is because the smoke of their torment arises forever and ever. Okay, well, that doesn't state that their torment is forever and ever. That only stated that the smoke rises forever and ever. You can put out a fire, or whatever is burned is consumed, and the smoke's still rising. Okay, it's just saying that there is going to be a continual memorial forever of the risen smoke of those who are destroyed. That's what that said. That proof text doesn't prove his point. He just doesn't realize it. And again, this guy, I think he's a good guy. I like listening to this guy. He can make some great theological points. He can do that. I think he's an honest guy. And he's a street minister, homeless preacher. He does a lot of good things, and does a lot of good things for his community in Canada. So this guy's a good guy. So we're not just bashing him, we're bashing the doctrine. And the doctrine, it comes from the roots and the history of the Catholic Church and how things were syncretized into that, and that in the Protestant Reformation, it was only a partial Reformation, didn't fully come out of these doctrines and didn't realize that these particular doctrines were ones that were syncretized in, that were brought in, and weren't originally part of the apostles' faith. So, okay, go on with him.
As day or night, those who take the mark of the beast. Luke 16:19, this is the rich man and Lazarus.
So, rich man and Lazarus, we'll talk about that at the end.
All right? Very clearly in the Bible, all the way into the Sermon on the Mount, there is a precious value of the soul. All right? Now, the consequence of rejecting the free gift of salvation is a lake of fire where you will burn for eternity. And it wasn't created for you. It was created for Satan and his angels. That's...
Okay, lake of fire. So this is obviously scriptural, but hell and the lake of fire are not the same thing. Okay, and so this doctrine of hell, of people being in eternal torment forever. Okay, this doctrine is pagan, and we're gonna flesh that out in this video and bear that out. And but first, well, the idea of hell itself. Okay, we get this. A hell means something that's covered or buried. Okay, when you're put in the grave, you're put into hell. You're put into a covering. The body is covered up. Okay, so this right here says the Old English word hell comes from helon, meaning to cover or conceal. Similar words coming from the same root have similar meaning. Hill, for example, is a mound of dirt or stone that covers the level surface of the earth. Hull is a covering of a nut or covered part of a ship. Heel is a covering of a wound. Hall is a building space used to cover people or goods. A hole is an uncovering. A book heller was someone who put the cover on a book. In the early days, to hell potatoes meant to cover them as to store them in a cellar or underground. To hell a house meant to cover a portion with tile. The term hell in a house is still used in New England portions of the United States. Incidentally, if you Google the definition of hell, you will get this comment in the origin of the word. Old English hell, Germanic origin, related to Dutch hell, German Holle, from the Indo-European root meaning to cover or hide. Hence, helmet. Helmet covers your head. To hell potatoes, cover the potatoes. At first, the use of hell had no fiery meaning to it. It was simply used as the common grave of man. So, hell, it didn't originally have this fiery meaning, but then it got assigned to this. And so, this verse here, okay, when you, and you'll have to get all these verses, get to the end of them to all kind of put them all together. Okay, so in this verse, and if your eye makes you stumble, pluck it out. Or it's better to enter into the rain with one eye than having two eyes to be thrown into the fire of Gehenna. So, Gehenna is the place outside of the city where the fire burns continually. It's a trash heap, and bodies of criminals will be thrown in there, or those from the street that had no one claim them. So the bodies could be thrown in there, and so when the bodies are thrown into this fire, and portions that aren't burned, then they can develop maggots, and so the fire and the maggots are consuming these bodies, and they're consuming and to consume them is just that. It's a consumption, and many people have debated as to what this worm is, and some say it's the soul, but because they want to perpetuate this, because they already got this hell idea in their mind. So the worm does not die. Well, what is the worm? Well, this is just trying to say that, when you have a dead body, or when you die, that that you're gonna be consumed. When you're resurrected in the second death it's the wicked death, then you're gonna be consumed. Your fleshly body will be consumed by the earth in some capacity. If you just leave it sitting in the field, in some capacity, this fleshly body will be consumed by the earth eventually. So, be thrown into the fire where their worm does not die and the fire is not quenched. So both of these things are consuming, and this is just to point out, and it's a quote from Isaiah. And they shall go forth and look upon the carcasses of men that have transgressed against me, for their worm shall not die, and neither shall their fire be quenched. Okay, in other words, there's no getting out of this judgment. Okay, just like a rotting corpse, there's no way that you're gonna escape the worm. And in this case, the fire too, like if you're thrown into Gehenna, the fires. Okay, or in this case, the lake of fire after the second death. That is the second death. After the resurrection of the wicked to the judgment, they'll go into the second death, which is the lake of fire. Okay, but this consumption, being consumed, you're not gonna get out of it. Okay, the consuming worm, it's not gonna die. Okay, it's gonna keep consuming and keep consuming and keep consuming. The consuming fire, it's unquenchable. It's not gonna be quenched. There's no one coming to save you at that point. Nothing is going to stop this judgment from being fulfilled. Okay, so Seventh-day Adventist annihilationism. The Seventh-day Adventists believe in annihilationism, which means the wicked will be destroyed and cease to exist, rather than suffering eternal conscious torment in hell. Okay, they believe that the unrepentant will face a second death in the lake of fire, experiencing destruction rather than endless suffering. So here's where what Brother John was saying, it's not right. The total wrath of God is just that you fall asleep. That's not true, which really flies in the face of annihilationism in itself. That if you just fall asleep, it's not much of an annihilation. Annihilationism is that you'd be completely destroyed, completely consumed, ceasing to exist. Okay, so this verse, okay, these verses talk about destroying and destruction. It's everlasting destruction. You'll be destroyed, but that destruction is everlasting. There's never going to be a third resurrection or something like that that's going to bring you back, that's going to save you, that's going to make everything. No, this second death, that's it. It's over. It's finished. It's done with. It wasn't a mistake. So here with this verse, who shall be punished with everlasting destruction from the presence of the Master? So, everlasting destruction, that's the takeaway there. And if the Mighty One, desiring to show wrath and make his power known, with much patience tolerated the vessels of wrath prepared for destruction. Destruction. And fear not them which kill the body, but are not able to kill the soul, but rather fear him who is able to destroy the soul and the body in, and the word here is Gehenna, the fires. So destroy it in the fires. This word hell, it's just added based on what's already been thought of as the doctrine of whatever hell is. Okay, this is, instead of saying Gehenna that they didn't think people would understand, they're like, oh well, we got this concept of hell. People understand that. But that concept, as we're going to see here in a minute, it's pagan. So the idea of being destroyed, obviously if you have the belief in a literal physical hell where people are tormented forever, those kind of verses don't resonate with you. Because you're like, well, it's destroyed. You're destroyed by being sent to hell, and you come up with all kinds of excuses rather than things that are actually definitive. But when you put everything in its totality together, especially, by the end of this, put everything in its totality, if you can put it all together in your mind and in one nice, neat little package, put a bow on it, then that's where you see the idea doesn't stand up, that there's a literal physical hell where people are tormented and tortured forever. So, and you, Capernaum, who were exalted to heaven, will be brought down to Hades. Okay, this is just blasphemy to the point. I mean, it's egregious sin that this should even be in what is called Scripture. But this is the New King James Version. But most all the modern translations have this word in here, Hades. It occurs in multiple verses in modern translations. And so the word here for Hades shown there in the original is this word. It's Hades. And so this being a pagan concept, this word has probably been likely changed over time. And so why would he be saying that you're gonna be telling Capernaum that you're gonna be brought down to this pagan god? Okay, that wasn't happening. So this word, no evidence, but based on the context here, this word was surely added. So Hades is the ancient Greek god of the underworld, also known as the realm of the dead. Okay, while he is often associated with death and afterlife, he is also the god of hidden wealth from the earth. Hades rules over the realm of souls, realm where souls go after death. He is often depicted as stern, pitiless, unmoved by prayer or sacrifice. So this is the idea we have of the enemy, Satan, in hell, presiding over it. It comes from this pagan idea. But the enemy, Satan, he's not in hell. He's a beautiful messenger that fell from the place that Yah created him to hold, and brought many of the other messengers with him. So he's not in a place called hell. He roams to and fro on the earth, and he's the accuser of the brethren. So here, this article, Ancient Pagan Origins Behind Christian Concept of Hell. Okay. The Greek realms of Hades and Tartarus. An Ancient History Encyclopedia explains some key ancient Greek writings, including Homer's Odyssey and Plato's Dialogue. The Phaedo depicted the afterlife as a vast underworld network. The entry process to Hades began when departed souls boarded a ferry to cross the river Styx. Okay, so this idea of Hades, this is Greek mythology, so it would not be in our scripture. All right, so the idea of the Odyssey. Okay, the Odyssey was mentioned over there. So this is pre-first century, pre-messianic, and so this idea was part of the pagan culture. Okay, the Odyssey, Homer, this is part of the pagan culture. Okay, in the Odyssey, the realm of Hades is described in greater detail. It was located at the ends of the earth, on the far shore of the earth, encircling the river Oceanus, beyond the gates of the sun and the land of dreams. So this is depicted in the Odyssey. The Odyssey here, this is 8th century BC. Okay, so well before the 1st century. And so this cements this idea as an idea that's pagan, that's from the pagan traditions. But this is what the pagans knew early on, and so it was brought in to make it more understandable for the pagans. Okay, so Ecclesiastes, these are going to be our smoking gun verses right here. These next 3 or 4. 4 tabs, but it's 3 verses. So this says, "For the living know that they shall die, but the dead know nothing at all." So we're taught that you die, you go to hell. When you die, if you're a sinner, you die without believing in Messiah. You die, you're going to hell. Okay, so you die, you go straight to hell, and now you have this eternal torment forever. Okay, eternal conscious torment. You're this eternal consciousness. Okay, like he was saying, precious, the precious soul. This idea that it's the precious eternity of the soul, the eternity of the soul, that the soul is always conscious, whether in or out of the body. The soul is always conscious. Okay, this idea, it comes from paganism, and this is the proof text for that. We really don't have to go any further. "For the living know that they shall die, but the dead know nothing." Okay, and we also have the verse here in another version, "For the living know that they shall die, but the dead know not." Okay, the dead know nothing. So we're not gonna die. People that you think that, okay, they died, they were wicked, they didn't know Messiah. Those people are dead in their graves, and like he talked about, soul sleep. They're asleep. Sleep is an unconscious state, and that'll take us, I believe, to our next verse. "For if we believe that Yahshua died and rose again, so also the Mighty One will bring with him those who sleep in Yahshua." Okay, so those who have died, they are asleep. Sleep is an unconscious state. You're not aware of what's going on around you. So people in religious traditions where they're praying to people who have died, based on these verses, they're not there to hear them. They're asleep. They're asleep. Okay? And you have those who sleep in Joshua and those who are just asleep, who are waiting for the second death. They'll be resurrected, judged, and be sent to the second death, or they'll be consumed in the lake of fire. Okay? Because our mighty one, he's a consuming fire. They're going to be consumed, destroyed. He's going to destroy both the body and the soul in the fire. Okay. And as it is appointed unto men once to die, but after this, the judgment. So, die, be asleep. The dead know nothing. Even people like King David, he died in his grave. From his death, even as long ago as it was, his next conscious thought, conscious understanding is going to be when he's resurrected for the judgment, which will be the judgment of the just. And as is appointed to men once to die, but after this the judgment. So appointed once to men to die and go to hell? No. Go to a judgment. The judgment is the great white throne judgment, and this is at the end of everything. Okay, this judgment. All right, so as we move on, here we come to the rich man and Lazarus. And so he mentions this parable, and you go through here, and there's and I used to be a subscriber to the idea that this was an actual story, actual events. You got the names, historical characters, Abraham, Lazarus, but all of this is just a story that's made up to say, and like he always says that he spoke to the people in parables. So this is a parable, even though it has all these seemingly specific things. It is a parable, and the only thing it's meant to say is that if they don't hear Moses and the prophets, neither will they be persuaded though one rise from the dead. Okay? And so there's all this stuff talking about the mammon, the riches, the people that are rich, and then you have the rich man. He's talking to the Pharisees who are those of the rich and those of the privileged. Okay, and all this is going to come down into this scary story about being in a place of torment, and this is the colloquial understandings even of that day of a place of torment, and he's but in the end it's only to say this, that if you don't hear Moses and the prophet, you won't be persuaded. Okay, so under this question on Big G here, is the rich man and Lazarus a parable? It says yes. The story of the rich man and Lazarus in the Gospel of Luke is widely considered a parable, a figurative story told to teach a spiritual moral lesson. While it vividly describes the afterlife, this description should be understood figuratively, not literally. The story illustrates themes of compassion and dangers of wealth and indifference, and the importance of heeding Yah's word and the teachings of the prophets, even if it means a story about something as complex as the afterlife was given as a metaphor rather than a literal account. And so here under this Bible info, literal or figurative. The story of the rich man and Lazarus appears in context and proximity of other parables and is located near the end of a long line of parables in Luke 15 and 16. So that's what you have in these two chapters, just parable after parable after parable after parable. And it's made up stories and intended to draw a conclusion or a picture, and for those who are astute and those who are paying attention and those who are connected, those with the ears to hear, then they can understand what these parables mean. Okay, parables in Luke 15 to 16, the parable of the lost sheep, the lost coin, the lost son, the unjust steward, and finally the parable of the rich man and Lazarus. And so this is not a literal story about a literal occurrence, and you know, and then from a paradise to a tortured hell, you know, that you can visually see one another. You know, that's another clue that it's not a literal happenstance. It's not a literal. It's a figurative story meant to convey a message. Okay, because you do bad things and then it's just like people, they do bad when they know they should do right, and then they get sick and it's like, oh, pray for me, you know, and then they're praying, oh yeah, don't take my life, you know, and stuff like that. So it's the idea that, you know, the wicked do bad, and it's if you have riches, it's harder to be humble and do right when you have riches, because then you have the power to do wrong. Okay, and so it makes it harder. But the poor person, all the poor person has is Yah. If they don't have any other distractions. So this idea of hell, it is a pagan concept. It was brought in from pagan traditions, and to this day, in our mainstream Christianity, we still have this pagan tradition that keeps us from the true understanding that Yah intends from His Word. Psalm 89:34, my covenant I will not break nor alter the word that has gone out of my lips. If you like the video, give us a thumbs up. Comment down below. Comments of opposition are welcome. Just don't say anything dumb like we're not under the law. We're under grace because you've been taught to use that verse outside of the bounds of its intended context. Subscribe now. Smash that subscribe button and ring that bell so that you get notifications of all future videos.